It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. Hello, this is another episode of Did You See That? It's Saturday, April the 24th, 2020. And this is a program for my class where we are reading through the Bible in 1 year chronologically. And today's reading was First Chronicles, chapters 3 through 5. And the reading that I just did was from the opening passage in the book Tale of Two Cities by Dickens. But it's very appropriate for the section I'm going to pull out today. Again, I pull out one section out of our reading that kind of stood out and got my attention, and this was a particular section. It's actually in chapter 5 of the book of Chronicles, First Chronicles. And it's referring to the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh. If you recall, these were the tribes, or the two tribes and the half tribe that resided on the eastern side of the Jordan River, who conquered that land before they entered into the promised land on the other side of the Jordan, and they would help fight with their brothers until they had conquered the land, and they would come back and reside there. So this is referring to those 2.5 tribes that were on the east side of the Jordan River. And the chronicler has related an incident that happened, or incidents that happened to these people on the eastern side. And so beginning in verse 18, we see it was the best of times. It says, the sons of Reuben and the Gadites and the half tribe of Manasseh, consisting of valiant men, men who bore shield and sword and shot with bow and were skillful in battle, were 44,760 who went to war. And they made war against the Hagrites and Jetur, Naphish, and Nadab. And they were helped against them, and the Hagrites and all who were with them were given into their hand, for they cried out to God in the battle, and he answered their prayers because they trusted in him. And then here's the blessing that they received. And they took away their cattle, their 50,000 camels, 250,000 sheep, 2,000 donkeys, and 100,000 men. For many fell slain because the war was of God, and they settled in their place until the exile. Now the sons of the half tribe of Manasseh lived in the land from Bashan to Baal Hermon and Sinir and Mount Hermon, and they were numerous. And these were the heads of their fathers' households, even Epher, Ishi, Eliel, Azrael, Jeremiah, Hodaviah, and Jediah, mighty men of valor, famous men, heads of their fathers' households. So that was the best of times. They trusted in the Lord. They cried out to the Lord, and he delivered their enemies into their hands. In fact, they were blessed in such a manner that their territory expanded from the Jordan River all the way over to the Euphrates River. And so they had everything before them, just as it says there in that passage in Tale of Two Cities. But then we come down to verse 25, and here's what it says. But they acted treacherously against the God of their fathers, and played the harlot after the gods of the people of the land, whom God had destroyed before them. So the God of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pul, king of Assyria, even the spirit of Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and he carried them away into exile, namely the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh, and brought them to Halah, Habar, Hara, and to the river of Gozan to this day. We see this story carried out many times in the Old Testament scripture, of times of faithfulness and belief and the times of incredulity, as it mentioned in that passage I read at the beginning. And these 3 tribes, or 2.5 tribes, were also guilty of this same thing. They had trusted God at one time, but for whatever reasons, they lost that trust. They began to worship and behave as the people in whose land they had conquered. And then of course they paid a consequence of that, and they were carried off early on into captivity by Tiglath-Pileser, and remained in captivity until the time of the Babylonian captivity, and then later the Medo-Persian captivity. So the point I would want to make from this is there are times in our own lives that we are faithful, that we trust God, and we receive blessings for that. And it may not be material blessings. It may be blessings of peace and of contentment. But then there are times that we lose that faith, that we look apart from God, that we look back to the world, look to where we came from perhaps, and look to the things that brought us no satisfaction. Now, if we're a child of God, we don't lose that, but God does discipline us, just as he disciplined these, and he disciplined them harshly. But even the harsh discipline of the Father is a blessing because it brings us back to him. So I would say that as I look to this portion of Scripture today, that we were reminded that, yes, there are times we have those mountaintop experiences. Let us be cautious that we do not turn from our God, who has given us all good and perfect gifts, for he is the Father of lights. Thank you for tuning in for Did You See That? And I hope to see you again.